thought they had banished us forever. But now, finally, we have returned.
Hello and welcome to a Writer's Craft show. We haven't done one of these in a while, and I'm excited to do them. Maybe one or two of these topics we may touch on later, but I wanted to kind of touch on them briefly today, maybe give an introduction of sorts. Some of them are like pretty quick and can be easily discussed. Anyway, allow me to bring in my wonderful guests. First off, my consistent co-host. Oh, the alliteration! I didn't even notice I did that. Neph Champion.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here again. Sorry, I needed a bit of a break.
Oh no, perfectly understandable. I have a weird stamina problem as well sometimes, where I have unlimited amounts in the afternoon when I stream, and then after that, I'm just like, kill me.
Yeah.
Anyway, allow me to bring in our friend Wolf.
And if you don't like it, no offense, but you have boring taste, and I don't want to be friends with you.
Really? Okay, first off, Dud, that's what she said last night. And oh.
You're muted.
About what, Wolf?
Listen, it's fine. We all have stamina problems. Sometimes all of us can get.
Yep.
Sometimes you just have the stamina problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yep. Yep. Well, and we also have our good friend, Count Valerian.
Quick, someone bring out the fax machines.
Afternoon, you
Oh, dear.
And, of course, our resident Brit. Please welcome Becca.
Yep, that's me.
Good evening.
Hail.
Hello.
Hail, brightness.
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
Good, and you?
Pretty good.
Not good yet.
Let me
That's good.
say hi to people in the chat. Stamina is just basically your energy to do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
Oh,
Hi, Hypatia.
oh, and alliteration for the win.
Thank you.
Don't mention it.
Yeah, I won't. It will be forgotten in the bowels of history.
Oh,
we still have not forgiven you for Kirk Cameron. What makes you think this will ever be forgotten?
Because it's not painful?
Yeah, this is talking about writing. This is not painful.
Well, meaning the alliteration. The alliteration isn't like that painful.
It will be very painful.
Anyways.
For
so
you.
You know,
for you.
the source of life.
Yeah. Life sucks. Deal with it.
With alliteration.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So this is kind of just going to be like our outline. We're just going to we're going to do this one first. We might do this at another time, but we'll at least like touch on it here. And after this, what I'm going to be doing every day is I'm just going to release chunks of this stream. I'll probably keep the original, but I'll separate it into little bits and pieces so that we can kind of cheat the algorithm a little bit.
Yeah, you can maximize profits if you had one in the first place.
Oh, we're
True.
going to make money off of this?
Well, I want
Is that
to
not
eventually
fair,
make
then?
money.
Fuck.
So, first topic, delivering lore in a creative fashion.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall, this topic was suggested by Tarek.
Yep.
Too bad he can't be here. This is his topic.
Well, he's
Yeah.
here in chat at least, so I don't...
Yep. Yeah, feel free to put some stuff up in as you please. I think like with kind of creative lore, there's like 3 ways you can do it. You can put a blurb in the prologue, and kind of just make the prologue like kind of a setup and kind of explain via that. That's what David Eddings does. You could do what Brandon Sanderson does, where in Mistborn, where he puts a blurb from an in-world book in the chapter heading. Another possibility is a character with information will share information with another character, and they can exchange sometimes. And it's sometimes interesting when one character is like super knowledgeable in like, say, academic things, but not so much in practical, and then somebody else who's knowledgeable in practical will kind of like exchange information with them.
Yeah. Like,
those are the major things that I can think of in terms of like creative ways to drop lore.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got like a scholar main character who basically the entire book is like him discovering shit in books. So, so it's like trying to like sliver that into the plot in a way that it's like if that's revealing something when he finds it, rather than it just being, oh look, he's written another book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got a number of ways I'm trying in my novel. There is a learned character who you haven't met yet. But then there's also, for example, I have one where the main character is being taught in her childhood about the religious truths. So I put some stuff in that way. Sometimes I just end up putting a little bit of an info dump in.
I personally like another way that you could do about it is expand upon it as you keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that.
Like,
I would agree with that. Like,
yeah,
and this one as well. Like, I feel lore as lore comes organically into the story, whether it be in songs, told about the campfire, does something that helps it make more natural and add some mysticism.
Yeah, it's it's like let's take let's say this for example. It's like what can you establish about this old man in the mountain? You hear tales about this old man in the mountain. And from wherever you can, you go to an inn, you hear people talk in fear about the old man in the mountain. But then you go to a campfire and you hear them talk almost casually about the old man in the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's possibly as well, like, if you have something in the world that's weird in the first place that is, like, notable enough to describe it, that perhaps is, like, it's connected to wider stuff. You can kind of introduce it as little snippets of like
Information.
Yeah, or like even if it's like a silly conversation between two characters going, why is that a thing then? It's like, oh yeah, it's because of this rando god guy that existed one time and he did this thing, and you're like, oh, that's cool, and and it disguises itself as a silly joke. You know, and things like that. That was the weirdest way you could possibly have put
Yeah.
Or like even when I think like one of the better ones is when actually one of the creative more creative ones was when actually Christopher Paolini has an interesting way of putting lore in, where he only puts in enough information at the right time, and he usually has characters will tell their old characters tell their backstory usually. One example is actually Braum telling the story of the Dragon Riders, which has the big bad villain kicking a dude in the crotch in order to beat him.
No, actually, here's another example I got. This kingdom spans singing. Why? Because the king was insulted once by a song, so he bans songs forever.
Well,
Yeah,
also, you sometimes also have like a thing where it's like you've kind of got to go, okay, so there's this little bit of lore. What kind of character would actually enjoy relaying this, or would find it interesting, or would purposefully put it into dialogue just because they like this little story? You know, because every story's got a person who would be likely to tell it. So you've kind of you can kind of do that kind of thing, and then because there's always room for a little bit of in between conversation before you get into the main topic.
There's also
and then there are the characters that live off of stuff like this.
Oh yeah, of course. Well,
yeah. And then there's another possibility that Dunn has mentioned occasionally is footnotes. But here's a question: what if you're talking about weights and measurements, and they're totally different from ours? Like a Turanian foot is about 13.9 inches, and their inches are different too. So I'm not sure if there's any natural way of explaining that without exposition, because all the people in the story would know things like that already.
I guess one way you could have it is actually be like kind of an education thing. Maybe you have like some farmer boy who doesn't know much about mathematics.
Perhaps, or maybe my immediate thought was like maybe you have someone in a shop selling like lengths of fabric or something, and you've got like them measuring it, but you maybe have something that is like applicable to the real world that is the same size as the measurements, and you can kind of describe the measurement according to how big it is compared to like those things.
Yeah, one thing I do have later on, you haven't got close to it yet, is there's a diversity of weights, and at one point a character is like ranting in an inner monologue about how many different types of weights there are. The Akarians of this, the Sandranians of that, these other people have this, just it's a complete mess.
Why can't we have a standardized weight system? In other words.
Yeah, so he just goes off on a bit of a rant on it.
I mean, sometimes you don't necessarily almost need it explained necessarily, because you don't. I mean, sometimes I guess maybe it's relevant, but sometimes it might be quite fun that like almost nobody knows that, like,
I think part of it is actually Wheel of Time doesn't have our same system of measurements. Like they say they measure stuff in stone and span, or
stone.
Yep.
Well, stone is
like, real. The British use that though.
We do, but it's like a specific amount.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see where the confusion can come from then.
Yeah, they don't use like pounds, or they mostly just say like it was really heavy, or they say like you must weigh like 10 stone, or say like you're an axe handle across the shoulders, or they were about a span in height. And about a span is roughly about 6 feet. But you kind of infer that by somebody saying that really tall guy tall guy or woman must be about a span in height.
Yeah. Brandon Sanderson has these things where he toss these words in, and then eventually you figure out what they are. You learn what they are from the context, but at first you got all these words. He's the third dawn. He's the second non, or sprin is like in the first page almost, not of the prologue anyway. There's sprin. What the blazes are a sprin, and then eventually he explains it.
Well, yeah, I think. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. But I just wanted to there were a couple of things from Space Junk that might be worth highlighting. But carry on.
But yeah, no, I think a big thing is like learning that you don't necessarily have to explain something the first time you mention the weird word that it refers to. Like you can, and often it's a good idea not to immediately jump into an explanation of the thing that you just mentioned for the first time, especially if you've got multiple things that you've got to explain. It's like, okay, so which one can the reader not function without knowing? Let's do that first, and then maybe leave it a bit and just mention it a few times so they know the word. So when you come to explain it, they're like, ah, yeah, I know what this thing means now. I've been waiting for this, and you can kind of, it means that it's not that people are waiting for the explanation. So it's less of like a forced sort of thing upon you.
Also suggested doing a Tolkien way, of hobbits, of pipeweed, where he explains all about smoking.
Yeah.
Of lung cancer. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Like an example is actually like most like Landman Dragon and the Aiel, or most of them are over 6 feet, with I think Matt Cawthon being listed as 5'10". So
I think to be fair, that's Germans mocking the imperial system there, going
true.
What is 6 feet?
Possibility.
I don't know what it is in centimeters. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another. So you could either do footnotes. You could also do head notes.
Head notes.
Oh, yeah.
Headers and footers.
Giggling Shardblade, Jewel, Tarek.
Yeah.
Headers
like
what Brandon Sanderson has.
Yeah, where in every beginning, like he has like an in-world history book or letter between interplanetary people.
I love it.
In the first one, he had those dying quotes too, and never figured out what those were, but
I think we figured out that one eventually, but maybe that's the second book.
It's like second and third, yeah. But it is answered, don't worry.
I love the ones in the Mistborn ones because they, if I remember correctly, it has been a while since I read the original trilogy, but they pretty much like completely unfold by the end of each book, the beginning bits, and which I don't know. I wasn't convinced by them completely when I was reading the first one, but after that I was like, this is almost the coolest part of the books, is these little lore bits at the beginning.
Yeah, makes sense. I totally agree. Kind of depends. I think like I think head notes. I think like at the beginning of a chapter, like especially if like it has relevance to the story or even like relevance to the chapter, it'll be interesting. Especially if say somebody is reading the book in world, but something is changing it, it'd be like,
yes,
oh, that's interesting. So what the characters are reading is not the original. We have the original. Oh.
I think it depends on. I think it can very easily be overused, but yeah, like I think doesn't Neil Gaiman use footnotes as like a bit of a? I feel like he might do.
I believe so, and they definitely Pratchett and the guy who wrote the Bartimaeus trilogy both use footnotes. Good Omens is as the funniest footnotes I've ever read in my life. Same with the Bartimaeus trilogy. Yeah, I think that would be a fun movie night. Would be Amazon's Good Omens series. That show is so awesome.
That show, love it so much. Oh my god, great.
Yeah.
6 feet are 1.8288 meters. Okay. That's useful to know, I guess.
Thanks, Space Junk.
Yeah. any other like creative lore stuff that you think that we
well, it's a very simple method, but a place of worship in my novel is called an ingra. So sometimes I've got that word, and sometimes I alternate it with temple. So hopefully they can figure out from that those mean the same thing.
That is a very good point. Generally, if it's from first person perspective or just from one person, like Harry Potter, generally it's better when it's either first person omniscient, or third person omniscient, or there's a variety of characters.
Yeah, I find it hard to write just one character, so I usually have a few.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on also kind of what style you're leaning on as well, because like it apart from other, I mean, like there's the Sanderson thing of like feeling a little bit more I don't know what the word is, but then there's like specifically like when you've got you know how Victorian novels had like this weird kind of, they're archiving like the letters, you know, like Dracula and stuff, you know.
Yes.
When you've got a bit of a feel going on for that, you can kind of make it, because then the structure of the story itself is kind of, it's almost like pretending to be informative and rather than a story. So a footnote can kind of feel like a part of that to a degree. It still can be overdone extremely, but it depends on how much you're leaning on that, what you're going for in terms of.
It can also be underdone.
Yeah.
So
you got to find a good balance.
If you find yourself doing a footnote for every single thing, that's overdoing it.
You collapse. He basically just collapsed dead. He didn't disintegrate.
Either way, he was not a good villain.
No, he wasn't.
He's very simplistic. He's basically just he's just a Nazi. That's all he is.
Yeah, kind of.
But Nazis can be interesting.
They can, but we all know that Rowling is a hack.
I don't think that she is a hack. She has at least she is possibly one of the most successful authors of all time.
You can be successful and still be a hack.
Neph, we're going to fall out here.
Yeah.
I don't think that she's a hack. I think because they actually like make some measure of sense. It's just the world building is off. It's mostly her like weird like post facto history stuff on Twitter that's weird, not the books themselves.
Yeah. I think I remember some. I think it might have been Sanderson. I can't remember. Someone saying that her magic systems and her world building between, like when you get to look at the whole thing is a mess. But if you look at the individual books, it's quite tightly set up, because it's the magic in individual books is like designed for the individual stories of each one. It's only when you look at the whole thing that the world building goes a bit wibbly.
No, she doesn't separate any of the different pieces of writing from each other.
It's
doesn't have she treats the world, the characters, and everything else inside of it as one thing instead of the world building is one thing, characters are another, and
well, yeah, but like in terms of like there's a specific way to kind of understand how she wrote. She didn't come at it as like understanding how fantasy and fantasy world building particularly works. She kind of went in going, I'm writing a load of wizards in a wizard school, you know.
Yeah.
And she had to add a lot of
not
stuff.
that means it shouldn't be good, of course, but
yeah,
I hasten to add.
It's vivid, but it's also sloppy. So I can see both. I think both of you have a point because it's very vividly written. It engages you, it draws you in, but it's sloppy in terms of world building and style.
The disconnect between the years kind of hurts.
I think
there are three major. I think there are a couple of major things. Like the ghost thing is really weird, and that's definitely a retcon. Like Sirius would totally come back as a ghost, and they just had to make it up that there's a rule that like he just didn't have his work cut out for him, so that death would actually have consequences. That was a major one, and I think oh, go for it. Sorry.
I just remembered what I was going to say. That I think she gets away with a lot of, like, you can kind of hand wave a little bit to a degree of what is sloppy in it, with the kind of whimsy thing. Because that's one of the reasons I like the books and I liked them as a kid. It's very whimsical. It's very, it doesn't have as much of like a kind of it's not treating itself like it's it's not treating itself like it's an archive of something. It's kind of more,
it's a storybook like Narnia almost.
Yeah, it's leaning on fairy tale a bit more. I think that's what I was trying to get at. It's leaning on the wonder of magic rather than
it's very very soft.
Yeah.
Because you add a lot of things over and over. I think in the movie he's still, the curse rebounds on himself, as far as I am aware.
Yeah, I think that's what happens in both the book too.
Yeah, I think that's both. I think it's both. Like I don't think that Harry kills Voldemort. He doesn't fight Voldemort in as explosive a fashion as he does in the movie. Yeah, it's strange. I think like it's such a weird thing. I think it's kind of, I guess, it's kind of a weird ending for the book.
The thing with that is that Dumbledore is Rowling's mouthpiece, and she is something like the ultimate pacifist. You should not kill no matter what.
But listen, you can't spell pacifist without the word fist.
Yeah. And also
but it's like, no, you should not kill him. You should not kill these people. They can be redeemed. Except there's a problem with that. The people who get redeemed are the people who want to be redeemed. And a lot of the characters on the dark side don't want to be redeemed.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit, I guess, muddled when like Mrs. Weasley straight up kills Bellatrix.
I mean, that is the best part of Deathly Hallows.
It is the best. It is the best part. Get away from my daughter, you bitch.
I still think Augusta Longbottom should have gotten that. I still think Augusta Longbottom should have gotten that because of what she did to Neville's parents.
I think I liked the Snape bit best.
Oh,
Yeah.
pretty good too.
Yeah, that Snape though was good.
Let's
Deathly Hallows definitely kind of fell apart from itself, but
oh god, yes.
she wrote herself into a bit of a hole.
Let's hang out in
a corner, and then she just couldn't get herself out of it.
Let's hang out in a tent for several chapters.
Yeah, let's
go camping for several chapters.
All right,
let's have Ron go off on an adventure.
Yeah. Anyways, do we need to say further about lore, or are we done?
Yeah.
I think we might be finished.
I think we did just turn it into a Harry Potter stream.
What the?
Helena Bonham Carter is Tim Burton's partner.
Ex-wife.
Oh, ex-wife.
I'm pretty sure they split.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
Any other lore stuff? I think we've pretty well covered that.
Yeah, I think we have.
Alrighty.
I mean, so the extent we can do it rapidly, yeah. We can't get into languages and all that stuff, which you want to do anyway.
Yeah.
Religion is a whole other subject, and that's part of lore. History history is part of lore, geography, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like that goes more into like designing lore rather than lore delivery.
Yeah.
Area, I think. We'll kind of cut here, and that'll be the edit. All right. So sequels that copy the original. I actually had 3 different sequels with kind of degrees. Terminator 2 is kind
definitely
of
the best one.
Don't they all
yes.
copy the original?
Sequels that copy the originals. Okay, so how does George R. R. Martin do lore?
History books.
That and in world, he will usually have characters talk about the lore to each other rather than
face the camera and talk to us.
Yeah, and also like have various different people's perspectives on the same bit of lore usually.
Yeah, he never in his novels goes into like the omniscient author mode. I don't think.
No. Well, we're going to cover like a bunch of different topics. That's why I decided to like do all of these sequels that copy the original. So, yeah, Terminator Genesis did indeed copy the first 30 minutes
of Terminator 1.
And then they went off the rails.
Wait, there were rails to begin with?
Yeah, maybe they just drew a tank over the rails.
Maybe.
Wait a minute, they had a tank? How could they afford a tank?
Yeah. Yeah, that part is weird. That part is so weird. That's a weird part. But I guess like it kind of depends. Like mostly like sequels that copy the original is a movie thing more than a book thing as far as I'm aware. Very, very rarely do books copy each other, mostly because it's in written format rather than visual format.
I mean, the only thing I'm thinking is, but that's not really copying, like when you have like a series of like mystery novels or something. It's like it's copying the format, but it's not necessarily, it depends on like the author, I guess. Some authors, when it comes to mystery stuff, they'll do the same beats and others will change it up a bit, but that's not really copying the story. That's more just doing the genre thing.
Yeah. And that kind of comes into kind of the thing where it's mostly like stuff that kind of like replicates are usually like pulp novels or pulp novels, serials, anthology stuff, that sort of thing.
And then there's Lord of the Rings, which wasn't even meant to exist in the first place.
Any of this meant to exist.
Aragon totally ripped off large chunks of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I hadn't even watched Star Wars when I read Aragon, and I knew that.
Well, I grew up watching Star Wars, so I was like, oh, this is interesting. Wait, this looks familiar. It's done well enough that it doesn't really matter, I suppose. I suppose that makes it a guilty pleasure of mine.
I grew up avoiding Star Wars because it was my brother's favorite thing. So it was like, let's just annoy him.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. Or
Whereas I'm like 4 decades behind on Star Wars. Sorry about that.
no, you're totally fine.
Don't worry about it.
And I'm sorry about because Don was trying to say something. I kind of
Oh no, you're fine. That's also true. Like the Madagascar sequels do not copy each other. They're very different movies.
Oh my goodness, Ma.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. I think like that's kind of an interesting thing. Like usually they don't like kind of the sequel that copies the original is not very frequent. The major people that I am aware of that try to do like a 1-for-1 is kind of JJ.
Yeah. See how well that worked. There was
it made
none
$1 billion.
of the soul.
Well, it made $1 billion. It was like the 3rd highest grossing movie of all time for a while, so it worked for a lot of people.
That doesn't mean that they didn't watch it a second time and go, oh, wait, there is nothing here.
Which film was that again?
Force Awakens. I put that in the middle.
Okay,
There's
one
also
of the Star Wars films. People were going to watch it because it was a Star Wars film in the first one. Yeah.
It was the first one in like 10 years, over 10 years.
Yeah.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, people were going to watch it then.
Yeah, and like MI2 as kind of the weird problem where it is not like the original at all. It is very different.
Which one was this?
Mission Impossible 2.
Oh, Mission Impossible. Okay.
Yeah, I just kind of picked like something that's kind of didn't copy the original but was good. Copy the original was fairly good. Did copy the original and wasn't very good, and then didn't copy the original and was pretty bad, but it's bad in a really entertaining way. It's bad in a John Woo fashion that only John Woo can do. At least I believe that's John Woo. I could be wrong. But it's definitely a different thing that a lot of different sequels, like I think like The Dark Knight's also an example of something that didn't do something that was similar as the original. Dark Knight Rises did do kind of recycle the plot of the first one. I don't quite like get why. It was a very bad decision to recycle the League of Shadows in the way that they did, where it's just we want to blow up the city. It's just you did that the last time and it didn't work. Try something else.
Yeah.
Listen. If it didn't work the first time, then you just need to try again. It may work the second time.
Except
that's the definition of insanity.
The definition of insanity, yeah. So no, don't do that.
No, it's only insane if you do it another time.
Yeah. Well, kind of the question should be like, it kind of boils down to kind of the genre stuff versus just kind of cutting and pasting.
Yeah. Force Awakens could have been a much better film, but the problem is that it completely negates the original trilogy.
A little bit, yeah. I think another major problem is just like they didn't, when it's a sequel that has a lot of stuff behind it and it just kind of goes to the old factory reset to the original after like a series, that's kind of when it's kind of rough.
That's what it did.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say it's kind of rough. And with Terminator, that's kind of just, it's a sequel that kind of decided to use a similar premise to the original, but kind of do some different stuff. Like instead of a human, it's a Terminator. And they kind of play around with your expectations a little bit to say, okay, like this guy seems like he's a little bit more socially well adjusted than the hulking Arnie, hulking Austrian dude. And then turns out, oh, the hulking Austrian dude is the good guy, and the more well-adjusted person who can shapeshift is a lot more guy. Yeah. And they keep the fact that he's killing people a secret. Like, it just looks like he punches that first cop, and then when you see him finally kill somebody, it's really gruesome. Like his hand is a blade right through the guy's mouth. It's really freaky.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of, or like a Sherlock Holmes story. Sherlock Holmes is basically like a variety of different mystery novels.
Yeah.
And it's kind of different mystery each time, but it follows like the same rough formatting. Where crime happens, Sherlock gets contacted by the victim or somebody associated with the victim. Sherlock comes in, Watson kind of bumbles around trying to solve the mystery, and then at the end, Sherlock solves the whole thing.
Yeah, it varies a bit, but yeah, that's the meat of it. There's one case where the criminal was actually where they witnessed a blackmailer getting murdered, and they just didn't do anything. But
it's kind of what I was sort of saying earlier. Like it is a genre thing to some degree with some things, like mystery, like kind of, I mean, horror films, like it's although they are technically copying each other, they're kind of just doing what every other thing in that category does.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in entertainment. Opera used to be like that too.
In Fellowship Part 2, he does say, "My fighting Uruk-hai," and Saruman does, at least. And he just says, "and now perfected." Gandalf in Part 1 also says he's breeding an army that can cross great distance, can move at great distance, who can move in sunlight and cover great distance at speed. In reference to the Uruk-hai in Part 1.
Got a bit of a debate going on there, I see.
Yeah. Well, thankfully the debate's easily solved with every crime series is very much the same. Each episode is pretty much the same too. And generally crime shows will try to have something other than the crime happening, because that will get boring. They usually will have like either interpersonal drama or an overarching plot. Like White Collar usually has some kind of like mystery relating to a treasure every time.
Or they may have they may concentrate a little bit on the character of the detective, like Inspector Morse, for example, is a very, very distinct character. So even if you're not, if you're not paying attention to the actual mystery, you can still enjoy the byplay among characters.
Yep. Yeah, regular orcs can't really do that as much in large clumps. In Return of the King, Sauron sends a clump of smoke over the battlefield, and you can see it high in the sky. Even if like you see the light, but that's only because they wanted you to see the action, and they can't like film night for day the whole time. So that would kind of just be like really gross and grim.
Yeah.
But at least
it would be.
That is true.
Yes.
I never see Inspector Gadget though.
You've never seen Inspector Gadget.
I only heard. Unless I get the
movies. Don't watch the movies. The movies are awful.
Watch the TV show, the animated TV show in particular.
Yeah. Criminal Minds. Okay, I haven't seen.
Oh, hey, it's Blue.
Hey, Blue.
Hey, Blue.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Yeah. I think Hannibal kind of avoids this by kind of making it very much about the dynamic between Will and Hannibal. Yeah, I guess moving back to sequels, like I don't think I think kind of like it comes from like genre expectation stuff. Like you can kind of avoid like copying a sequel, or if you're trying to say, okay, I'm following a formula, I'm not writing like a very complicated plot, or at least like I'm writing a plot where like I'm gonna follow some kind of like format. That's kind of generally, and usually like it's more of a book problem. It's more of a movie problem than a book problem in terms of like sequels that copy the original.
Yeah.
Original in terms of like the structure and plot. Since as bad as they are, the only thing that like the Sword of Truth series like does in terms of its plot is like they don't copy each other, they just copy the basic structure of each other, which is meandering thing toward one point, then abrupt climax with Deus Ex Machina resolution, and then the next book is the Deus Ex Machina turns out to have a bad side effect that they have to work through, and then another Deus Ex Machina, and then another Deus Ex Machina, and then another Deus Ex Machina. It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
And then the fifth book barely even focuses on your main characters. It's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. For something like Force Awakens, I definitely would have rather seen what was
little bit, yeah. 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 The only movie that I've like actively liked Matthew Broderick in is Lion King. And I was kind of sad that the Lion King remake was like boring and the actors were given like no good direction. Because like Beyonce's not bad. That. Yeah, let's not.
Is that a live action version?
Live action in quotation marks.
The photorealistic Lion King. Let's go with that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Sounds horrifying.
The problem with
photorealistic sounds horrifying. How so?
Oh, just in the sense, like, why would you? I don't know. It just there's just something like oddly technical and weird about it.
The problem
why
with
they didn't call
realistic lions is that they are not expressive.
Well, also they're like, have you seen a nature documentary? It unless you go full on brutal, it's gonna look weird.
Yeah.
You know, and this is a Disney film,
and they ain't gonna go with blood. They aren't gonna go even remotely close to say a Richard Attenborough documentary.
No.
And,
David Attenborough.
But David Attenborough, sorry.
Richard was the other one.
Yeah, Richard's the Jurassic Park dude.
Yes, his brother.
Good old Dickie Attenborough. Love him.
And they don't talk. Lions don't talk.
Yeah.
No, lions don't talk. Well done, Valerian.
Yeah.
I know. I just learned that now. I just figured it out now.
Neither do like the little bird things.
Yeah, but they took characters that were really, really expressive and
dead faced them.
Yeah.
And like didn't even like do anything different, really.
No, they didn't.
It's just
it was lazy. A 90-minute movie, and they added like half an hour to it.
Yeah.
Hey.
But I think
absolutely nothing changed.
But I think that's the thing about like, yeah. But I think like with like sequels, like it's fine if they copy the original if they're like a genre thing, and it's just like here's like the basic plot structure, and it's not like a long running series.
Yeah.
Like if it feels like the characters are doing the same thing over and over again. Usually like fantasy books don't have that problem where because usually there's some measure of progression and they're in different locations and having to do different things.
That wasn't so in Star Wars, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, I think
And well, it's just they wanted to kind of recapture some of the feelings. Yeah.
You can recapture the feelings while doing something else, you know.
So what's this mania for live-action remakes anyway?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't get it.
Absolute insanity. That's what it is.
Hollywood.
I mean, Disney isn't even particularly good at live action.
It's not even insanity. It's just lazy.
Lazy cash grab. Just
Stupidity.
weird creative bankruptcy.
Yes.
It's Disney going, hey, you know us, the animation studio? Let's just do live actions.
Guys, you're known for your animation. Stick to what you're good at.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they did do live action things earlier.
But
Like
they don't do animation anymore.
Yeah, I just know.
Like 101 Dalmatians, the live action version.
Do the dogs talk?
I mean,
nope.
Glenn
The
Close
dogs don't talk.
was great.
Yeah, Glenn Close is like absolutely hilarious.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, and like she allows her to make like she like allowed herself to be like made like royally fun of, and also the slapstick and the hurt that happens to Jasper and Horace are hilarious.
Yeah, it's you know what, that film is very charming. I mean I watched it when I was pretty little, a lot, and it's that you know, that was the days when live action remakes of Disney films weren't a swear word.
Yeah.
Goodness.
That would be.
They seem to have forgotten how to do that.
I think that actually that would be.
I would totally.
I would unironically like. I don't know how they would do a Cinderella 2, since Cinderella 2 was a canned TV show that they assembled into 3 episodes, but Cinderella 3, Cinderella 3 could actually work.
Well, you know what? To be fair, like the live action of Cinderella is one of the ones that isn't bad. It's kind of interestingly stylized. You know, the acting's pretty good. It works as a film. It's kind of nice. I quite enjoyed it. I think you could kind of have like a really fun, wacky Cinderella 3 in that style, I reckon.
Oh, I think that I would be cool with that. Like Terminator, but with Cinderella. Sign me up.
Yeah. I'd watch that.
I want a live action Robin Hood, but with foxes and stuff, real foxes.
Oh my god. But, no. Goodness
They
me.
just do it. They just do to the Disney Robin Hood what they did with Lion King.
And I want there to be raccoons in it too. Actually,
isn't Friar
Tuck a raccoon?
No, Friar Tuck's a badger, but there
badger.
are
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But there are I think there are raccoons like every little bits and pieces.
Yeah, we need that.
You're offending my friend. Leave her alone.
No comment. No comment. No comment.
Okay, we've spent this. I think that just like this. I just think like the topic of like sequels that copy the original is just like I don't know how much you could really get out of this topic. Like we mostly like it's mostly just I honestly
Force
don't know.
Awakens would have been better if it had not copied A New Hope.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I missed something. Don't touch bears too. Yes.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah, because Little John is a big old bear.
Yeah.
And he's played by the same guy who played Baloo, who seemed to be typecast as voicing animated bears for a long time.
That's a weird typecast, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, the sequel to their Treasure Planet movie.
What? Oh my!
What's
Force
TFA?
Awakens. Force
Oh,
Awakens.
all right.
Oh,
let's
live
not
action
do live
Zootopia.
action.
Oh no, the furries would go nuts over that.
Oh,
God help
please,
us.
no. No.
God help us.
Oh, good
Yes,
lord,
I agree.
no!
Oh, dear.
That is...
I read that. I read that in James Earl Jones' voice.
Oh, no, Ma.
We're talking about
Oh,
Disney live action
God.
remakes since we were Brother Bear. That would be, or a live action Brave would be interesting, I guess.
Maybe, but there's a problem with that. They've been replacing every single redhead with a black. It's
that would be hilarious if they decide, oh, this Irish chick is. I don't think so. I think they mostly just are doing that with comic book characters.
Scottish.
Yeah, but well, yeah, I'm
Honestly,
I think they could make that work.
I thought they did do a live action.
No,
not Treasure Planet, Treasure Island. I'm thinking of.
They did do a live action Treasure Island, but a live action Treasure Planet would actually be pretty cool.
It would be.
It would kind of be like a giant budget, like sci-fi extraordinaire thing.
Yeah.
It would be basically they'd have to have a Star Wars budget for it.
Yeah, and I don't know if they would like do that since they're never going to remake Scott. They're never ever going to remake Treasure Planet or Atlantis: The Lost Empire or Chronicle or Black Cauldron because none of those made money.
Black Cauldron I can understand, but Treasure Planet, no. If everyone
don't
loves
look at quality.
Treasure Planet.
They don't look at quality. They look at how much money it made.
After the fact, when it came out on video, everyone bought Treasure Planet.
Yeah, true. At least I think so. But I think
the thing with Treasure Planet is that it might not have been popular then, but it's literally everyone's freaking favorite film ever now. So it won in the end.
And a live action Atlantis would be fun too, because I remember watching that and having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's like the same artist who drew Hellboy doing Atlantis in his own unique style.
Yeah, so if they make it and they give everyone enough notice that we're making live action versions of these, and we heard you guys love these,
so
they'd make a whole ton of money.
So sorry, folks, for not talking about sequels that copy the original in the forums thereof, and mostly just talking about remakes instead.
Yeah, it kind of went to tangents, but on the other hand, there's not an awful lot you can say about that, is there?
Not really.
Not really.
Not much I can say about it, certainly.
Yeah, it's mostly just like it's mostly a movie problem, not a book problem, and it's mostly just like, hey, we're going to do this thing in a visual medium, similar way.
Well, it's like, hey, if you're gonna copy something from your first thing that you're doing, maybe do something different as well at the same time. That's kind of distilled.
Like maybe instead of
that sounds horrible. That sounds so horrible.
Yeah. They would have to do it at this point though, because the roof caved in, and they have no idea how to do it. They have no idea how to fix the roof.
Yes, Black Cauldron did in fact lose to the Care Bears movie that had been out for 2 weeks.
That's kind of fucking hilarious.
Yeah, Atlantis was amazing.
Yeah. Treasure, that would be Road to El Dorado, which I quite enjoy.
Treasure
because
Planet.
No.
No.
Yeah, that's Road to El Dorado. Road to El Dorado was fun. but in a
Yeah.
very different way.
Yeah, it's
Treasure
bas-
Planet is Treasure Island, but in space with
Yeah.
lots of steampunk stuff. It's really cool.
Mhm. Go watch it.
yeah.
Watch it almost strangling you in your sleep.
No, Wolf, calm down.
Did you
It's
just
time to
crack
get
the
your-
high
It's time to get your this filthy slobbering Mongol as shots.
Yeah.
Yep, that one applies nearly every time.
Oh yeah, you should watch it. It's really good. It's very
Definitely.
enjoyable.
It
It's
is.
really
It
great.
is. In fact, I believe
yeah. we
Yeah,
have
we did
a
watch
thing.
it.
I need to. I don't know if I'll have to check if I downloaded it. I don't know if I was able to.
I would
since-
have no problem watching it again, so you can download it.
Yeah, we'll see. But I think like just watching it on your own is fine. We mostly just haven't didn't really talk much about craft. But it's kind of like kind of talking about like that topic is kind of it's kind of limited. I don't know like how you could really like discuss this other than just like people are pretty savvy. I think they'll generally notice if like you cut and paste something, at least that I've seen.
Yeah, and it was
At least-
definite. I was expecting it to not be a basically copy paste of A New Hope, and I realized that about halfway through the movie that I'd seen this movie before, and that just took me out of the movie completely.
Hypatia, I was joking. I'm not going to strangle you in your sleep. You're just going to have an accident.
Well,
totally
would
unrelated.
it?
You're a bad person.
Wolf, shut up.
Yeah, no
Well, you're just
strangling.
No
Stop
strangling
threatening people
ladies.
in
No
chat.
strangling.
Anyway, I don't do that. No. I don't do that. I do not play like that.
We are only allowed to threaten David Benioff and Ryan Johnson.
Just those two? Are you sure I don't have a
Yeah.
living list of people to threaten? What,
Calm
we are-
down,
Maggie
calm down,
Mayfish?
Wolf Boy.
Don't be a cad.
Okay,
be a
so
cad.
we're finished with sequels, I believe.
hmm
Okay.
This is an interesting one. Fans and writers.
Ah.
So, kind of in specific, when a writer does kind of what a fan, I think the question was a writer doing what they want as opposed to what the fans want.
I think that was
Yes.
suggested by Caesar.
There's something like that. Let's see if I can find the actual thread.
Yeah, I pinned it. I actually pinned it, so
It's pinned, yeah.
and then put a screenshot there. So
Right. So,
it's the old
writer being allowed to
things.
do whatever they want versus the writer that listens to what their fans want.
Yeah.
Should writers be free to do anything to the story they're telling, or must they follow a set of rules? Well, if you're writing, you have to follow a set of rules.
Yeah.
Of some sort
Unless
or
you're
other.
creating your own universe, you have to follow the rules of whoever wrote what you're writing in.
And even if you do make your own universe, you have to be consistent with the applying the rules.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, Ryan Johnson versus
George Lucas.
George Lucas is a very good one. It's like when Luke has been written as the most optimistic character in the entire universe, you cannot turn around and make him a nihilist without showing us the arc of him doing so. You cannot just make him a nihilist without showing us how he goes from being an optimist to a nihilist.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of difficult, especially when it's. I think like also like Mr. I think Mr. What is it? Mr. Lucas, like he was willing to like say, okay, Jar Jar served his purpose. Jar Jar is not going to be in the third one as anything other than he is showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. What the difference is that Lucas wasn't paying attention to what his fans wanted. We all wanted the story of how Anakin turned into Vader, and as long as he did that, he was okay. People didn't like Jar Jar, so he went, okay, Jar Jar served his purpose.
Wait, what's
Johnson's
disease?
Oh.
Okay, it's called okay, Steve Johnson syndrome. Flu-like symptoms appear as a painful. Okay, what's that?
I don't know that. Was he actually?
Oh, dude, you need to get checked. You need to get checked out right now. That's not good. You get okay. According to this, you may experience rashes, blisters, peeling, rashes, smell, purplish spots, red spots or small bumps, fever or malaise, coughing, eye redness, itching, mouth ulcer, sensitivity to light, sore throat, or swelling.
I don't know that I needed to hear that.
I don't know either.
Okay, but that's kind of like fans and writers. So, like, following a set of rules. I think that a writer needs to. I think, like, Brandon Sanderson puts it best, and he says, like, you should have, like, set up some promises in your first few pages, first couple of chapters too, so that you can like the audience knows like what they're going to get, but you can still kind of have like either give them what you promised them, or you can kind of find a way to give them what you promised them in kind of a circuitous, or even give something different. He often uses the example, he's never said what book this is. I wish I knew, because I want to read it just kind of I want to see it just as kind of an experiment. Is a book that basically like starts off as a traditional fantasy and then subverts it like halfway through and tries to turn things on its head. So it's very much two things. So it was kind of a contrasting thing of two things, where the people who wanted a traditional fantasy liked the first half but didn't like the second half, and the people who didn't want a traditional fantasy got a traditional fantasy at the beginning and didn't get to the part where he subverted it. So
yeah, that's the problem with that.
Well, the thing is, like, when you've got, like, you know, Lucas and Rian Johnson sitting here, the big problem with them, it's like it's kind of framed in terms of fans and writers, like who want, you know, doing, but it's like ultimately it's not about what the writer wants, and it's not about what the fans want either. It's about what the story needs. It's about the fact, especially if you're writing something, and this obviously applies to Rian Johnson more, if you're writing something that is already got a story going, you're writing that story. Yes, you're writing your bit of the story. You can do whatever the hell you want with your bit of the story, except for the fact that you're writing a part of another story, which means that you can't just nod and acknowledge it. You can't just not follow the rules of storytelling that have already been established through the story, just because it's my bit of the story, because you're such a child at that point, you know.
Or even just throwing out structure in general.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or lore, or, you know,
past rules of the universe just because you want specific payoffs to happen, because you can't think of any other way to get your characters out of situations.
If you can't think of any way to do that with the rules that you've been given, you don't change the rules because you're playing in someone else's sandbox. You hand the project off to someone else who can. That's what you're supposed to do.
Or you sit down and do what like every writer ever has to do, worth their soul, and actually just figure it the fuck out, because it's not that fucking hard.
No, it's not. It's really not.
It's probably worth noting here that fans will not be all
negative or all positive.
I mean, they're not going to all have one view of what they want to happen. So
Yeah.
the fans, there's not the fans.
It's not about what they. It also, like, framing it as like what they want isn't necessarily because that implies what they're going for before. And I mean, everyone's read a book where they're like, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this shit to happen, but you love it anyway, right? Because that's
Like,
not what
you
the
didn't
book
want,
isn't
like,
for
a
that.
lot-
The book isn't to tell you what you want. The book is to
tell you a story.
tell you a story and do something interesting.
And move you, hopefully.
Yeah, and like, so it's not about what you want, it's about whether you walked away from it going, well, that was awesome, or that worked, or whatever, like, it's about what you think afterwards, not what you think before. So trying to do what you think fans are going to want is you're failing in the
Like,
first place, because you should be doing what fans are going to appreciate afterwards, which doesn't mean doing just your thing. It means yeah,
I think like an example of this is actually The Rise of Skywalker, where like, and The Mandalorian, where they're just like, they are the desperation to cater to fans is very clear, and just throw member berries at the screen.
Member berries are not what we want. We
What's a
want
member
a
berry?
cohesive
Season 1.
story.
Member berries are basically like surface level references to stuff that came before, like member, remember this.
Oh, like it's a season 1 reference.
yep.
Yeah.
Or it's a New Hope reference. Isn't it wonderful? And look at this. This is a Yoda.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or this is a Clone Wars reference. Or this is a Rebels reference.
References.
This is a Attack of the Clone reference. A Revenge of the Sith reference.
Reference.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah. It's kind
We're
of just
not
like,
here for the references. We're here for the story and the action.
yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we're here for. We don't care
Yeah.
otherwise. If
I
you
think-
can get those in there and it works, then kudos to you.
Yeah.
But if you can't, leave it out.
Organic. Make it organic.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
really
no, it's good.
Oh.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, you're fine.
Yeah.
No, I swear once upon a time we understood that, like, primarily referencing is a comedy area. Like,
Yeah.
which doesn't mean don't use it in non-comedies, but use it in
Use it
in its
sparingly.
place. Use it in its place, use it in its purpose, which is to make you go, huh, oh, I remember that. Which isn't a story, that's a little woo,
Yeah.
Like an example is like in the Dragonlord Annals, because I am spanning a huge amount of history, I have to reference stuff that's come before in order to give context for what's happening now. Almost in the same way that the same way that we reference like Stalin, Genghis Khan, Hitler. Charlemagne, Winston Churchill,
Yes.
Alexander the Great, Harriet Tubman, Mother Teresa,
Churchill.
I did say
those
Churchill,
people.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I
that's
did-
kind of that's in story context and lore
Yeah.
context and stuff. It's not
Yeah.
in, hey, do you remember when we met in season 1? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Do you remember that joke I made?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, true.
okay, do you remember that time when Sean failed to jump over that fence in Shaun the Dead?
Yeah.
Here's Hot Fuzz with Nick. Nick actually jumping over that fence.
It's not about, I got a reference. Yeah, I got a reference. Yeah.
But, Wolf hits the nail on the head there. That's a comedy series referencing itself because it's a comedy series, guys. Oh my god, that's where it's supposed to go. We've solved
Yeah.
it.
Like,
The only problem is that
please don't do it in drama stuff. Please don't ever do it in drama stuff.
don't do
Maybe
it in
that's
drama.
me.
Don't do it in sci-fi either, unless it's a sci-fi comedy.
Maybe
And
all
Star
these guys.
Wars is certainly not a sci-fi comedy.
Yeah.
Maybe all these guys watched the Cornetto trilogy and thought that's how you write drama.
I guess maybe since
I mean, they're great, but No.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just Ryan Johnson just needs to just like stop doing like what he thinks are high drama or even like what he thinks is semi deep or clever and just do parody movies.
Yeah, that's what he needs to do.
Because honestly, like The Last Jedi is kind of just a parody of Star Wars, and Knives Out is kind of a parody of mystery novels and mystery movies.
The difference is Knives Out works because it's its own thing, and Last Jedi does not.
Define
Actually,
what
Knives
you
Out
On the
mean by
surface,
work.
on the surface, Last
define-
Jedi does not because it's actual Star Wars.
Define works. I've
Knives
watched.
Out.
I mean, what I mean by that is that he's not working in someone else's world. He has created, quote unquote, his own.
Well, the problem with Knives Out isn't necessarily the world. It's the problem with that is just that the characters are dumb.
Yeah.
All of the characters are really,
I know.
really,
It's like
really
they're all
like-
stupid, and on top of that, the entire thing is just quite obnoxious, really. But
yeah, like there are some funny elements of it, but with Knives Out, like at the end, you have Daniel Craig in this ridiculous Foghorn Leghorn drawl, like going on about donuts. It's like this whole thing is like a donut, but in the middle is like another donut. But in the center of that is an even smaller donut that I need to figure out and fill in the hole.
You know what? I think I forgot that. I think I deleted so much of that movie that I forgot that.
On paper, Knives Out works where The Last Jedi does not. That's what I'm getting at. So.
I don't even know if it does that because I've attempted to describe Knives Out to Smud whenever we watch a Knives Out video, since he's never seen it, and I just have to say, man, this is ridiculous.
You know, the more you think about Knives Out, the more it doesn't work. It's one of those.
Yeah.
It's like at first you watch it, you're like, this isn't too bad. It's not as bad as The Last Jedi. I don't know. And then you think about it and you go, oh wait, that's kind of. Oh wait.
Like.
Oh fucking wait.
like when the guy thinks that he has imbibed killing amount of morphine when he actually hasn't. It was fine, but he thinks it's morphine and he doesn't want his Hispanic nurse who he's giving all of his money to possibly have a killer and to have accidentally committed manslaughter, so he kills himself by slitting his own throat.
This is so dumb.
That whole convoluted mess was thing.
Yeah, the whole setup for the mystery is just like, oh, I'm trying to subvert it by turning into a crime thriller where the Marta is trying to cover things up from the world's dumbest detective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the fucking vomiting shit.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, she apparently cannot. Apparently, this person is so pure that she cannot. That she pathologically cannot tell a lie, or else she vomits.
Which is just goddamn stupid.
In a pure out comedy, it could be kind of funny, but like it doesn't commit.
But it's not a funny. But it's not a comedy. That's the problem.
And then there's like bits where the film really cheats it, and it's just like,
some things there's like nuggets of like, oh, that's okay, like erasing a videotape with a fridge magnet. Like that's clever. But why would you allow somebody like, and he kind of says he knows kind of from the beginning because he sees blood on her shoe. Why is he keeping her around? Why isn't he just saying, why is there blood on your shoe? And how would he even know that that's... And how did that blood spray from at least 7 feet get to there?
I don't know.
Yeah,
he does have a rather unhealthy obsession with that.
I don't know. I think he just is a dumb guy who can only think of contrivances in order to solve the problems.
Yeah.
I think he probably has an element of the they didn't expect that kind of thing, but I don't know whether that's
or like
entirely his motive.
Or like the nurse is so good that she apparently could tell she was fumbling around in her purse, dropped it, and then accidentally picked up the right vial just by testing the viscosity, even though they were mislabeled.
Yeah.
I don't think it works like that.
No, it doesn't.
Just now
in a kind of like heightened sort of, I can deal with like a film deciding to not run by normal rules. You know, a story can do that. You know, and it is quite heightened in its sort of world
Craziness
that it's trying to create, because it is, you know, this is the same nurse who vomits every time she tells a lie. You know, so let's call it a weirdo kind of world with strange rules, but it's still like, I don't know, it doesn't understand itself enough for that to completely get pulled off. But I can see where it's trying to go in with that.
And also when the climax of the film hinges on that fact that she could tell morphine from the antibiotic just by viscosity.
You almost got to like set up that telling viscosity from fucking picking something up is like a weird quirk of this world.
But like, even really,
even then it still wouldn't work.
Nurses wouldn't do that. Like nurses would like carefully check.
It's pretty irresponsible, really.
Yeah, and there is also the fact that Rian Johnson did go into making The Last Jedi to splinter the fan base.
I don't think so.
We have him on record saying that
his idea of
success is for half the audience to come out loving it, and the other half to come out hating it. He has
true,
said that.
That is true, but we also need to take into consideration he has not accepted any criticism of TLJ.
I think
to this day, he has not.
Probably more on a level of like that.
What do you mean? This is perfect. La 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 la. I can't hear you.
It's probably more of like a problem that he's got with like going criticism. Criticism must mean it's good, because instead of just going, oh, criticism means I can improve. You know, it's more like him having a weird complex than him going, I'm a criminal mastermind.
Honestly, like Ryan, like, well, I can't even say he's a good person. You're at least a functional adult. Go make parodies.
Yeah, and leave us alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but I think like George Lucas got like a little bit too much hate, to be perfectly honest. It's just that George Lucas has very, very specific failings as a writer. He's a good world builder, and he's a pretty decent, I don't know. He's a good cinematographer. He's a very good cinematographer. But I don't know how good of a director. I don't think he's that good of a director, since like even when he like states his goals, like he's technically not succeeding at the goal that he has by replicating like old like 50s and 60s era acting.
That reminds me, I've got an analogy for this.
Yeah.
Specifically for what we've got on screen.
Yeah.
Lucas applied a bit too much makeup to Padme's face in slightly the wrong shade. Padme wasn't even in the room for the sequel artist.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what happened.
Mm-hmm.
All of it is surface problems with Lucas.
Yeah.
Whereas the very foundation isn't there for the sequels.
Yep, that is correct. And honestly, like I like George. Yeah, I like George Lucas as a person. He's very interesting. I kind of put him in kind of like the same category as I would somebody like Guillermo del Toro, where both of them kind of have brains that kind of function on a different level than most people.
Mm-hmm.
Like George Lucas is very, very meticulous in how he crafts shots, where he wants to kind of like pay homage. Though the problem with that is you're only really going to get it if you're watching like relatively old if you're a cinemaphile.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And like kind of like he's replicating like stuff like black and white films from the 30s. 40s. Yeah, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And since that's kind of just the films that he grew up watching. And that's totally cool. It's just that most people aren't going to necessarily notice. Yes, he actually does. You know what? That's actually not wrong.
Newton, please.
May you yourself for a bit, maybe.
Yeah.
No, he's actually that she says it. Yeah, he does look like a young George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, except he's Hispanic. I think he's from Spain. He's either from Spain or Mexico. I can't remember.
Mexico.
Oh, he's from Mexico. Yeah, he's from Mexico.
Actually, speaking of that, I have a picture to show you guys.
Yeah.
I can't mute myself fast enough to catch the telephone at the same time as muting myself. That's why I asked Dunn to do it.
Yeah, no worries. I'm down with it.
Yeah, he just looks like
he does. Wow.
Just slightly less pudgier.
What, is that him?
Yeah, that's Guillermo del Toro.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's like thanks, my face. Yeah, he does look like a young George Lucas.
George R. Martin.
Yes. Yeah, I do see it. Definitely.
George R. Martin. George Lucas is kind of pure as opposed to George R. Martin. George R. Martin kind of comes off as a dirty old man.
Yeah, kinda.
Well, in his interviews, he's not quite so dirty as in his books.
Yeah, he's very articulate and very relatively clean, except for like the occasional swear word.
Yeah.
Like, how the crap do you write so many freaking books? Yeah, I love George R. R. Martin. He's a really cool guy, but I think like
I'm gonna squash you like a bug.
Yeah, but I think like that's kind of like when you set up your rules, you got to follow them. And if you're like somebody picking up in the middle and like continuing a series, you gotta either figure out how to organically integrate new rules or figure out creative ways of interpreting new rules. Don't just arbitrarily make up new ones. That's not a very smart decision.
The expanded universe writers managed to do it. There's no reason that Disney could not have. Except Disney didn't want to.
Well, I think by virtue of just the expanded universe is so huge, there are going to be contradictions here and there.
I mean, like Timothy Zahn himself reported like how kind of messy the continuity was. Like there were attempts to try to fix this, but most of them ended not so well, and it just felt like there were constant retcons after retcons. It's like he was straight up told by his writers, like, "Hey, you gotta make your book make reference to like Dark Empire, so match with Dark Empire." You're like, no, just no. And so he has like Mara just say that was a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just Star Wars continuity. That's a mess. Like the expanded universe, just because it's like what, several dozen writers all like writing in the same universe.
My point is, they still managed to keep it mostly straight with, 3 rules? Whereas Disney can't keep it straight from book to book.
Or even like movie to movie.
Exactly.
I don't expect you to like read the entire like expanded universe canon, because the expanded universe canon is huge. It's the biggest like literary universe that I am aware of.
It is. Even I haven't read them all. But the point is, I picked them up because I wanted more Star Wars, not because I needed to read one of the novelizations to actually understand one of the movies.
It's okay.
Lower
your volume.
The problem is that while the expanded universe had a few competent writers, and they had a bunch of semi-competent to horrible writers, the Disney canon universe has
No,
hardly
call it explained because that's what it is.
the explained
Yeah,
universe
seems
has a competent writer. We're surrounded by a bunch of incompetent writers.
like our good friend Crapplechuck.
Dawn is the only competent writer in the writer's room right now.
That's why I said
Yeah.
one competent writer surrounded by a bunch of idiotic ones.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
kind of just Chuck Wendig. I kind of want to read the Aftermath novels on stream.
You should pirate it just to spite him.
Yeah, but I
Big
think like that
fucking-
kind of this one kind of like is a little bit more interesting. I kind of created kind of a scale where yeah,
I like this
Where-
topic.
yeah,
Hmm.
likable villains. There's the competent villain who's pretty charismatic in terms of like their presence just fills the room, like Tywin Lannister.
Dooku.
You could feel
Dooku and Palpatine are both like that, I think. I mean,
don't
we
think that
know we should
I don't
hate
think
them,
that-
but their presence is just...
I don't think that Dooku gets enough screen time to merit that, though. He's barely
still
in
a
the
likable-
movies.
He's still a likable villain.
That's mostly
he's
because of
charismatic
Christopher
enough.
Lee. That's
Well,
mostly
yeah,
because
that's
of
true.
Christopher Lee. The writing does not necessarily support him as much. Most of his characterization is inference. It's mainly Christopher Lee's voice that gives Dooku personality. If
Even
it was
if
any
you-
other actor,
though he does side like the few scenes where you do get the content, where you do get some semblance of Dooku as a character.
you
Yeah.
do, but like it's
I
just.
wish he could have gotten more screen time, but
I'll be
I
honest.
think-
I always think of Christopher Lee's voice as a whole separate person. So
Honestly, with
Just
like
saying.
Dooku, I think that like he's mainly fake. Like he's mostly artifice. That's the main. That's the main characterization that I get from Count Dooku, and it's very. And the only time where he's somewhat like upfront is when he's fighting Anakin and Obi-Wan. Every other time, like he's pretty fake. Because he's not, it seems like based on the movies that like his idealism is a front for his Sithiness.
it might not be, though, because he was a Jedi first.
True, but it's kind of just like he's lying to when he's talking with the Trade Federation and the other separatists while the clones are coming in, he's like saying, how could they have mustered an army so quickly when he knows full well what they are?
Yeah.
He's pretty much set the whole thing up.
Well, no,
So-
it's not him that set it up. It's Palpatine that set it all up.
He was the guy who hired Jango Fett. So
Under Palpatine's direction, I might add.
So he knew about the clones.
Not exactly. He may have been somewhat aware, but it's not. But this is Palpatine. He probably wouldn't even let in. He's most trusted on the full spectrum of his plans.
Well,
no, he
the
would
man
not
is-
have.
I
But
think
eh.
at least in like
The man is secrecy upon secrecy.
true, but
Uh-huh.
I think that like but considering that like they were Count Dooku and Mr. Sifo-Dyas were in league in creating the clone army. It's pretty clear that Dooku knew about the extent of the clone army, and in the Clone Wars series, which is technically canon, he's fully aware of the clones, owns Order 66, and
Mhm.
technically Order 66 is common knowledge in the original EU, and then the Clone Wars 3D animated series decided to make it a secret.
Well, yeah, you don't want everybody finding out. Why is this a directive here saying that all Jedi shall be killed up on the Order 66? What's that supposed to mean? It's like nothing.
Well, in the EU, it was after the fact.
Well,
So-
in the EU is basically like a series of orders. Like one of the orders was if the Chancellor betrays the Republic, they should be killed. He should be killed or arrested.
Mhm.
Same with the Jedi. It's basically just a series of like protocols.
Yeah, but
Safeguards.
it will only be known by the clones. The Jedi shouldn't be necessarily aware of them, just then they'll get suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Even more so
That's
than they
true.
already were, because...
Yeah, they shouldn't know. And they probably didn't know. They probably just either ignored it, or they just and it's just
They're
kind of
probably too
never
focused
really
on the war to
explained.
fully focus their attention on the directives of the clones.
Yeah,
And the
it's not very well
let's be
explained.
honest, Palpatine probably had some pockets to pull the Kaminoans and ensure that certain information was classified even for the Jedi.
Yeah, since according to that, like apparently, like the Kaminoans like were like working for Dooku the whole time, and since like he's under the pseudonym Lord Tyrannus, and he said and he's kind of saying that there's like traitors among the Jedi that need to be rooted out using the clones. So yeah, Star Wars continuity doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you try to break it down. There's so many contradictions. It's headache inducing. Well, I think like Dooku kind of is at least like competent in terms of like he's able to take down Anakin and Obi-Wan. He's able to hold his own with Yoda, but in terms of like he's kind of just a hammer horror bad guy who's played very well by Christopher Lee.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like an example of like somebody who's like super competent and charismatic is actually Palpatine, because you see multiple sides of him.
He's a Machiavellian villain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember like telling Neph this earlier. It's like he made it sort of his plan worked in every single way possible. There was only one person in the entire galaxy who ever outsmarted Palpatine, and that was Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Otherwise, everybody else played exactly to his hands.
Tywin is occasionally likable, usually not, but occasionally. Like when he puts Shoff in his place.
Yeah, that part is absolutely hilarious.
Yes.
It's
I
like,
wonder if there's an
the
element
king is
of...
tired. Take him to his rooms.
I mean, I adored Tywin all the way through, but like that's like the whole thing. It's like, what does the word likable mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think
like your villain could be like, I think your villain could be like entertaining, or at least related.
Yeah.
I wonder with Tywin type characters that it's kind of like you're almost liking them for the same reasons that they do well in story. Like they're so charismatic and kind of on it that they exude what to you what they're exuding to the people in story. So they kind of even though you can see the whole story playing out, they kind of win you over a little bit. I wonder if there's an element of that.
I think Vader gets that way.
Yes, especially in Empire. I think mainly he kind of comes into his own in Empire, where I think kind of that's a good example, like a character who like is competent and has a presence. And with movies and television, a lot of that has to do with the actor playing him.
Yeah.
Since with Vader, it's the combination of David Prowse height
and James Earl Jones' voice.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a character I try to make likable in that he's sarcastic and he will say caustic things all the time. So at least he's amusing, even if he's
I didn't intend her to be like this. She just sort of turned into it as I wrote her. But I have one of my primary villains is basically an evil queen, but in kind of, she's like the fairy tale evil queen, but put into like Machiavellian sort of reality. But she's just basically a massive bitch to everyone. Like everyone she meets, she just has like in her internal monologue, she's just like, I'm not a fan of people with acne. just don't like them. She's ugly as fuck. She should sort that out.
And Cersei, book Cersei is kind of like this too, because you get into her thoughts and she's thinking all these caustic things, and she's like totally catty, snarky things at everybody. It's
Hades from the animated Hercules.
Yes, I do have to say, okay, I'm fine, I'm cool, I'm fine. Yeah.
Maybe it's easier in cartoons.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't have to pick a person. You just have to pick a voice.
Yeah, and it's also partially like the caricature.
Yeah, like the...
What was that again? Show that again?
Oh.
You're correct, sir.
Okay.
That's Hades.
Yeah, I think there's levels of what's the
word? Okay, that's great.
Oh, hi, Peter.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Hades is hilarious because he's basically he's not this like dark giant dark lord. He's basically a used car salesman type.
Yeah. Well, and of course there's Maleficent.
Yeah.
Who's basically like a person, basically just I delight in being evil and psychopathic.
And no, we're not talking about
I specifically chose the animated version rather than the live action version because even though like you look at Maleficent on Google right now, all you get is the Angelina Jolie one.
Yeah.
Oh, God, no.
I mean, she was good at it. It's just they took away what made Maleficent.
Her edge. Her like
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like there is a joy in seeing just pure honest evil, I think. Like because you're kind of I think...
that would be Lindsay Ellis.
Oh, Dead Chap is in the chat.
Ooh.
Hello, White.
Hello, White.
Yeah. Yeah,
I wonder if when you can kind of see what the villain's doing, and you're like, you can kind of have a wink and a nod with what they're doing. I think that kind of almost applies to most of the ones we're gonna be talking about here. It's like you're on the same level as them. You can see what they're doing. You're like, yeah, I get you. I get what you're doing. And you can kind of enjoy the ride from that perspective because maybe they're doing horrible things, but you feel like you know them. So you're like, yeah.
It's basically like you make them so simple and straightforward. Like, it's kind of the difference. Like, I think like George R. R. Martin kind of does this, but he kind of like makes his villains really horrible people.
Yeah.
And then there are the people. Then there are the characters who are the 9-to-5 evil people,
which is
just
kind
a
of
job.
Which is kind of like they're just like. I think an example of this is actually Gunnar Broad in the Age of Madness trilogy, where he's kind of just like an enforcer because like he says like, oh, you gave me a life and my family financial security. Okay. Yeah,
going back to the ones who are one-dimensional one, there's one I'm remembering, I think it was Mombi in Return to Oz, where she goes, oh, you've ruined my beautiful wickedness. Ah. Maybe I think
that was the original Wicked Witch, wasn't it?
I know I'm confused.
Since like the Wicked Witch of the West like gets splashed with water, and then maybe I need to watch Return to Oz since I know like Return to Oz is apparently like actually legitimately horrifying. Because
well, yeah, you already brought her up, but the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz is one of those that's just it's delightful. And well, the problem with writers these days is that they want complex villains, and that's fine. but there's also something in the simplistic villains that are snidely whiplash that is just delightful to read.
Oh, going back to the witch. Going so soon? I wouldn't hear of it. Our little party is only beginning.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. I think another thing, well, kind of, I don't know if it's like that they want to, that they ignore, like, the mustache twiddlers. It's more just like they are trying to write complex characters and they're not succeeding.
No, they're not.
And
I mean, if you can pull it off, go for it. But if you can't, then stick with simple.
Yeah.
Please.
Make it cohesive and consistent anyway.
Yeah, Tyrion, like, a lot of people kind of, I think the show kind of, Tyrion's more likable in the show. He doesn't necessarily do as many bad things in the show as he does in the book. He does a lot of bad things in the book. And, like, by book 5, he's a broken man who really, like, just wants to do terrible things. Like,
but
he's just saying,
still like him. You still like him dialogue, though.
Yeah, because he's very funny.
Where Martin's coming from with that as well is possibly from the perspective of he knows where he goes.
Mm-hmm.
As well. Like, when you don't have the full story, it's kind of, with a character that goes from one thing to another thing, you can't really categorize them very easily until you've got the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I would rather read a well-written Maleficent than to read a badly written Vader. Just to pick two names that we've been talking about.
Evil queens are the best, okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love them.
Sometimes the evil queen should just be evil. Sometimes that dragon should just be a dragon.
Yeah,
Dragons are good.
Exactly.
Depends on the dragon.
Yeah, some are pretty evil, but even that's quite fun, you know?
And sometimes Hera should just be the bitch.
You just didn't know. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
You're just wonderfully funny, Hypatia, okay? You're a wonderfully funny person.
Yes, you're wonderful.
Yeah, like when you said, like, I get cranky when I don't have sex with my boyfriend.
I think we're back to no comment again.
Count Valerian, anytime anything remotely sexual is mentioned, no comments.
Yeah.
No comment.
So I kind of like put that. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Becca, I cut you off.
Oh, no, don't worry.
But like that's kind of like the spectrum. Then there's kind of like the broken characters, and I picked the Tooth Fairy from Hannibal specifically for this one, played by Richard Armitage. Thorin Oakenshield from the Hobbit movies.
He's really
yeah, that's
wow.
He's a flawed hero more than a villain.
Yeah. So
Tyrion, you mentioned him earlier.
Hey, you didn't know that Richard Armitage played the... Why are you angry, White?
Why is he angry?
Why are you mad?
Because he's the White Dragon. He has to be angry.
Always angry.
Oh, I think he found out that I actually brought back his wing rod and then destroyed it again in a fit of... I was just mad for a moment.
She got slighted at the birthday party. She didn't get invited, so she just says, "Hey, I cursed this kid will die when she picks her. She'll die at 16."
I wonder if evil for evil's sake is a little bit like misleading. It's more evil completely out of proportion. Is possibly.
That's a good.
You know what
that's
I mean?
a good. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maleficent just wants basic manners. That's all. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to expect from people.
Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time is a very likable villain. He is so much fun.
Magic always comes with a price, dearie.
You monster.
He's just,
And, oh, I'm a monster.
I thought it was me. Dang, it seems as though his ire has been transferred.
Oh, I'm a monster. Listen, I'm that an undead dragon F thing that can't kill
Very
anybody
worse,
on a rock.
and the humans took side by not inviting her and inviting other fairies.
Oh, I didn't know. Huh.
That's not well-known fact. I don't think.
Is that an extra material? Because I don't remember that in the original movie. I remember like some fairy stuff in the live-action remake.
From the original Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah,
fairy
probably.
tale.
Yeah.
But it's still like the sort of thing where you go, all right, well, I'll stop inviting you bullshit people then.
Yeah.
That's kind of what a normal person does. They don't curse a child to die.
Yeah.
I would like this.
Evil by overreaction.
Yeah.
Come on, White. I'm right here. Come at me.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. Like, I totally will accept it. Like, that's in the actual fairy tale. Like, that totally makes sense to me.
Well, it sounds very fairy tale logic.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, be careful that you don't slight someone because the reaction might.
Yeah, the fairies will blow things out of proportion if you slight them.
Yeah, fairies are.
Oh, you denied me bread. You just called my mother fat.
Yeah, but I think but kind of like the kind of with the Tooth Fairy or the Red Dragon, played by Thorin Oakenshield, and just a unique, very different performance than Thorin Oakenshield.
He's a freaking epic actor.
Oh, he is. He's also
so is Gollum.
He also I honestly think that Richard I would agree.
I've seen Richard Armitage in theatre, and he's fucking amazing.
There's apparently like he actually was dating the uncle of one of my sister's boyfriends for a little bit.
What?
Oh.
What?
No comment.
Wow. Why have you got all these connections done?
Stop being so important.
Utah's a weird place. I never got to meet him, unfortunately, since like
you have yet to be in Brandon Sanderson's secret evil basement.
Yeah, I need to.
I'm still so jealous of that.
I need to. Well, you'd be jealous of my family. I've never been inside of it. The rest of my family has.
Really is.
That's getting a bit violent right now.
Wait, Nihilus, you both are going a bit overboard.
Wait, Nilius, hold on right there. I think if we're getting something, as the founder of the Nephilium cult,
let's get back on.
You're not allowed to go against me.
Let's get back on topic, shall we?
Yes.
But I think like with the Tooth Fairy, he's a different kind of likable than Maleficent or Tywin. Tywin is this guy. He's decently competent, but the main thing that at least both allows you to be scared of and be at least sympathetic towards him is the fact that you see that he's a human being, that he's attracted to this one girl, that he feels for her, he loves her, but also just like he's like a broken human being inside who kills not out of revenge, but kind of out of like just his own like broken psyche and kind of extracting that. And also there's that weird moment where he eats a painting of the Great Red Dragon in order to imbibe its power into him.
Well,
what are some other like villains that you can kind of think of that are like kind of sympathetic? Like, I think Tyrion's an example, but like, what are some other? I guess.
I'll bring up an example then. Daka. I think if I just hear correctly, I think it's Dakao. Dakao, yeah. Not Dakao. That's a freaking great. Hang on.
Let's see. This is kind of obscure. You might not get this, but Falcon Fanil from Escaflowne.
Okay. Explain. And
Okay.
what makes them sympathetic, and why do we kind of like them?
He is Von Fanel's older brother. He was supposed to be king. He would have died on his dragon slaying rite of passage to become king, had he not been found by the actual villain, which is named Dornkirk, who is also Isaac Newton. Yes.
Interesting.
But he finds himself on the other side where his big brother instincts are warring with the fact that he is his brother's enemy.
Would you call the Count of Monte Cristo a likable villain? Would you call him a villain in the first place?
I would actually say yes.
Okay, okay, that's his name. Okay, Dahao from Valkyria Chronicles 3.
He is definitely. I think definitely like with like the Count of Monte Cristo. Partially, it's because it's mostly not from his perspective, which is interesting. He's and also I think especially in Gankutsuko, which is the anime version of Count of Monte Cristo, I just watched it on YouTube because I was bored. And I like that. I like that story quite a bit. And he's like, that is definitely a villain. And partially like they switched the protagonist spot to the son to Fernand on the son.
Yeah, Albert.
Yeah, Albert. They switched it. Yeah, they switched the protagonist to Albert and kind of made him a little bit more in the background, or at least like made him more of like an antagonist, and kind of though they don't necessarily put him, and they also don't go right into his backstory. They actually explain his backstory later, and it's actually instead of him meeting with a priest, he meets with this eldritch deity that was bound in the Chateau d'If that's a prison planet.
Yeah, the Count of Monte Cristo also, you've got the thing of overreaction, because he takes revenge not just on the people who harmed him, but on their families too.
Yeah, like Villefort's family specifically. Like he ruins Villefort's life by making it so that like exposing Villefort's and Madame Danglars' affair by bringing forward the child, by ruining Fernand's reputation, by bringing forward Haiti.
He encourages Madame de Villefort to murder people.
Yeah, to commit suicide and poison her own son, and the only person who escapes is Valentine. And because he decides to save her because his friend Maximilian, yeah, the son of his old boss, is in love with her. So he decides, no, I'm not going to hurt this kid. This kid's a good kid.
Yeah, but he but he also like ruins things for Albert. Albert was like his best, almost like he wasn't really his best friend, but he was friends with him for a while.
Yeah.
So
and makes it so that like he has to move back to Marseille because Fernand gets his dad gets his reputation ruined. The funny thing about the movie is that they don't necessarily do that. They actually end it with who here has seen the 2002 version of Count of Monte Cristo?
I don't think I've seen any version.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
So Count Valerian, just your immediate reaction. Basically, the ending is they omit Villefort's wife and son dying. They have the Count of Monte Cristo being Albert's dad the whole time.
What
and they have And they have the ending is a sword fight between Fernand Mondego and the Count of Monte Cristo.
So, so basically, Dantes and Mercedes were doing it before they got married.
Yep, and they end up together at the end.
Oh well, I think them ending up together at the end is a good thing.
I actually would agree with that because like Hede is kind of pointless, and it's kind of like it's kind of odd that like the Count is shacking up with this like girl that's like several years his junior.
Yeah, and Mercedes is like she's a strong character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think like you understand like a sympathetic villain, like you understand like where they're coming from. Unlike kind of somebody like Ramsay Bolting who's just a psycho.
Well, I wonder if that's even if that's kind of the likable villain thing, even because like it's. I mean, it depends on what you mean by knowing where they're coming from, but to a degree, that's kind of what makes it's kind of outside the story when it's like an evil queen type character, because it's like you know where they're coming from because you've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
But with a Tywin character, it's more like you know what game they're playing, and you're falling for what they're making everyone else fall for in the story. So you kind of know where they're coming from because you can see that. And then with the sympathetic one, it's more you know where they're coming from because you're sympathizing. I guess it's just like different avenue that you can kind of find common ground with them.
It's the broken dog versus the chess master mentality.
Tywin is one while Palpatine's the other.
I think that Tywin and Palpatine are pretty similar, honestly. They just have different motivations. Tywin's focused on legacy. Palpatine's simple, I would like power.
Yeah.
I think that like the main thing that like elevates Palpatine is both, I think the dialogue, but also Ian McDermott's performance really raises Palpatine into a top tier villain. If Tywin were played by a different actor than Charles Dance, it wouldn't be as good, but the writing would still be solid.
Yeah, Tywin's kind of like he's a collision of perfects, right? Like, so rather than like one thing elevating another thing.
So the last thing is that we'll talk about today, and then we'll conclude it, is plot armor. And I actually found this and thought it was very amusing.
You insufferable Mary Sue. We've all been there.
Yes.
Yeah, Batman occasionally gets super overpowered. Like he puts red sun particles into his like Hulkbuster armor when he goes up against Superman at one point.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's ridiculous. That is so
and
dumb.
It's even more ridiculous that it works.
Yeah. Well, science-wise, like it works in the sense of the DC universe where if Superman's not close to a yellow sun, he gets depowered. But like putting red sun particles into your gauntlets.
How the hell are you even supposed to do that?
Yeah, how's that even possible?
It's because
I don't know either.
Stars are made of plasma.
Maybe it's
kind of hot as the main.
Maybe it's like shattered pieces. Maybe it's shattered pieces. Maybe it's like shattered pieces of a like exploded red sun. I don't know how that works. It's weird. Like DC Comics and Marvel Comics do not make sense.
No, like, they don't. But that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Hot take, then.
Yeah. Very, very hot take.
They don't make sense. Comic books don't make sense. Holy shit.
Yeah. Comics are weird.
Yeah, they've always been weird. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think kind of one thing that we should kind of say is plot armor exists in all series everywhere.
Yeah. Sometimes it's very, very obvious plot armor. Sometimes not so much.
It's
And
kind of the difference
really...
between kind of the difference between somebody surviving something because like, oh, they got a little bit lucky here, or okay, they're skilled enough to work their way through it versus they survived an impossible thing. Like, I think the movie that I've seen with the worst plot armor is actually The Lone Ranger.
Huh.
Because in The Lone Ranger, you have Tonto falling from several hundred feet up onto rocks in a train car, and he just gets up like he's Wile E. Coyote.
Wow. Goodness me. Well, it's an interesting thing with the concept of what you're trying to do with the story, and that you've kind of got... I don't know whether genie in a bottle is kind of the right analogy, but like the very concept of having the story in the first place is that you've got something or someone or multiple characters that are able to a degree more so than the other characters they're going to come across, able to overcome stuff. You know, like that's kind of the point. Why would you follow them if they weren't able to overcome stuff better than other characters? And you've kind of the trick is like not letting that run away with itself, basically.
Don't have like multiple impossibilities.
Yeah, both Arya has a teeny tiny bit of plot armor, I think.
Yeah, since like she gets through a number of dangerous situations without getting killed.
Yeah, or worse.
Like killed or worse. Like with everything in Harrenhal, the getting captured and getting away from the people. Stuff like that.
There's I would call the Force a bit of a plot armor. I think not quite. At least in A New Hope. For Luke.
I think the thing is, right, when you've got like a fantasy thing, like partly what fantasy elements do is they allow for the enhancement of the ability to do the impossible. They give you the justification for that kind of lessens the degree to which this would be plot armor without it, if that makes sense. Like
suspension of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief in fantasy is higher than in most other genres.
Or action. Like, the nice thing, like the kind of the difference would be like in like action movies, like the difference between Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is a mountain of a man, who's like built like a truck, not getting any shot at all, and just taking out hundreds and hundreds of goons with his giant ass machine gun, versus John Wick, who like gets shot, stabbed, and hurt in the first movie, and then John Wick survives a fall down a 3-story building, including hitting his back on a railing. On a balcony railing, and
that sounds like
it
should have. That sounds like it should have broken his back.
Yes.
Well, by law of existence, he is Keanu Reeves. His pure awesomeness is all the plot armor he needs.
Like
Well, Keanu Reeves is a vampire. He's like Christopher Lee.
And he's still plotting his takeover of the world as we are speaking.
Clearly.
And Christopher Lee's helping him.
No, that's what I said. Christopher Lee's plotting his takeover.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No, I just thought of kind of an interesting analogy, maybe. That. So, sorry, Wolf, you're the only one that's not going to understand. But take the Battle of the Tower, right? From Way of Kings. And now imagine that it was never set up that Kaladin had any kind of power of any kind. That's just not part of the story. It's just the bridge stuff. There's no... And imagine the Battle of the Tower. That's like... that. I think that's what the difference between plot armor and not plot armor. Like, it's
at least like plot armor that kind of greases the wheels versus plot armor that's a turbo rocket.
Yeah, it's like, the purpose of fantasy is to give your characters a little bit more armor so they can do crazy awesome things. But you've got to kind of go... You've got to say, give a nod and go, hey, this thing's possible, guys. Because otherwise, it's gonna...
break suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, you're gonna go, okay, right, so you're just having a power crazy fantasy thing going on. Yeah. Rather than this is just awesome stuff, but it's like it's mimicking how things actually work.
Hell, did you fly?
Yeah. I think one example, like, is kind of just like, I think like a good analogy might be there's only a certain level of awesome that you can get to before it like becomes ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And kind of like if you do have something like sometimes you have to say, okay, this is awesome, but it's a little bit too nuts.
Yeah, he has to have a weakness. Like Superman had the kryptonite thing even back in the day.
And the red sun.
And the red sun, I think that's later.
Yeah, the red. Well, it's kind of like the red. Most of Superman's weaknesses came in later, since pretty much there wasn't really much in the way of complexity back in the day. Like, and people just kind of wanted a power fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, there was kryptonite back in those days, but then I think they got rid of that. They changed it so that he was...
And then they made Soul. And then they made
several... they brought kryptonite back.
And then they made several different variations of it. I think they even made a kryptonite that turned Superman gay.
There were like globs of kryptonites even back in the 60s.
Mm.
Yeah.
70s.
It's like that we could actually like... It's like when it comes to heroes and plot armor, it's kind of expected that superheroes are going to have a degree of plot armor to themselves. Comic books usually work off this logic.
Like when Iron Man is catapulted right into his roof in Iron Man 1, he should have broken his back.
He really should have.
Yeah, it's like, and then you get like some things like hey, I'm trying to think, bro. I'm trying to think of something really, really comic booky that would work if it really grounded itself.
The Dark Knight, I guess.
No, I said like something that's really, really comic booky. It has to be like something so early stupid that wouldn't work unless the tone of it was super comic booky. Okay.
The Boys.
I said comic booky, not no. Not The Boys. Never The Boys. Not within a million miles of my life.
No,
it's a scene. I'm trying to think of a scene. I'm trying to think of a scene that looks really, really stupid.
3, Spider-Man, the original Raimi movies.
You want to fuck it? Okay, I might as well create it. Okay, say this. Yes, your character is long. Okay, say this. Okay, your character. Oh, now I remember. X-Men characters die all the time,
and then they come back.
Yep. Like, honest to God, this is an actual plot line, and thank you to Hornet for introducing me to this. Magneto was once killed by...
Spider-Man is so desperate for a girl, he makes a deal with the devil.
Like, listen, like, this is something that actually happened once in an X-Men comic. Magneto died once because he sneaked into the X-Men manor, killed Zord, disguised himself as Zord, and killed Emma, then destroyed New York, and then Rory chopped his head off. Then he came back, and it was revealed that it was actually Zord's twin brother who was possessed by somebody else, who then killed Zord, disguised himself as Zord, and then killed Emma.
Oh my goodness, that is so freaking convoluted.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, you see how complicated that is? It's like, that would work at all. Well, unless it was a comic book.
Yeah, there's just some certain things where it's just like the medium really, really affects, like, since a lot of people would not like. Well, I guess like with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles works as a TV show more than it does as movies, to be perfectly honest.
Especially animated.
yeah, since the only live-action TV show that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did was The Next Mutation, and people say I think the Turtles fans say that does not exist. Venus de Milo is not a thing. Do not ever speak of this.
Listen.
Basically,
Don, listen. Don, everybody likes to close their eyes and pretend you did just say that there was such a thing as live-action Ninja Turtles.
Live-action Ninja Turtles. We're in Disney level of ridiculous now.
it's
Or
like the
people like the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live-action movie. They don't like the sequel, and they really don't like the third one.
But the whole idea, I mean, it's just...
The only Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies I saw was a 3D CG one. And that was pretty good.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is like another planet to me.
Yeah. I love the 2003 version. Turtles counting off 1, 2, 3, 4 turtles.
Oh, shut up!
I'm more of a fast forward fan.
Well, that's included in Teenage Mutant. That's included in 2003. That's included in 2003. Same continuity.
Well, sure.
I remember being about 18 and finding out what their
It's
names were.
Ninja
and
time!
fucking confused why they were named after fucking Italian painters from the Renaissance.
Oh,
I don't know. That never made sense to me.
I was studying Leonardo stuff at the time, and I was like, the fuck?
It never made sense to me why they chose
Fast forward, Leonardo Donatello, fast
other
forward.
than the fact that I think it is that they all rhyme.
That's sort of educational, I guess.
I want to know if they're
Yeah.
Italian. Like,
Well, I guess I think Splinter. I think Splinter just read found like a book of Renaissance stuff and decided, oh, these are good names. I will name my sons after these painters.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Ninja Turtles were my nephew and niece's generation.
From the past. 40 and going to scratch.
Animated shows. I watched a whole lot of animated shows when I was little. Yes, that dates me. I don't care.
But we didn't have Ninja Turtle ones back in the 70s.
Valerian flashing the age card.
You know, that's a big. We have to come up with these once.
Yeah, please don't make me. And great, now the theme won't get out of my head. It's really catchy for some reason.
So now that you mentioned the Ninja Turtles, I have to show this bit from the Studio Cease. It's not bad. It's actually really funny.
What
Dunn thinks is really funny is always
Sketchy?
Well, you know, we've heard his accent.
Shouldn't non believer,
Oh
Charlie.
no! I should have said that.
Okay. I hope this works.
It's 3, 2, 1, Dunn explodes.
Yep. Nick's on fake Brit accents, Dunchap.
Yeah.
I just see black. There's nothing there. Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Yeah, it's just loading.
Raphael, don't destroy your work. They're gonna make a kids show based on the 4 of us.
That shows our contributions to the fine arts and the health promotion?
And no, it's about the prepubescent tortoise ninjas with the genetic alteration.
Oh, yeah.
Oh god, this is dumb.
Wait, are you on your laptop? You crack.
Yes.
You
It's
banned
about
you
prepubescent
from using
tortoise
your
ninjas.
laptop ever again. Somebody shoot Dunn right now.
Oh, it works fine. It's about prepubescent tortoise ninjas with the genetic alterations.
You still broke the ban. You had to be punished.
Yeah, apparently like Leonardo da Vinci made a time machine, and then Raphael came back, and he's like, they've made a kids show about us, about our contributions to the fine arts and health promotion. He's like, no, it's about prepubescent tortoise ninjas with the genetic alterations.
Okay, I'm broken now.
That is awesome.
What is what?
Good lord.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you find out what Dunn's been quoting for.
Yeah.
That
Will our souls
is
to survive? That's the question.
Oh, good dear.
that is awesome.
That is what?
Except that they would not use the word awesome.
I know.
Yeah, but it's funny, Neph.
It's funny. It's funny.
I mean, no one used the word awesome.
Like
Yeah.
I like for sure. Like for instance, the founding fathers did not have a fraternity, but they still did it. Studio C still get a skit about the founding fathers fraternity group.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it. The anachronism. Yeah. I can remember the day when awesome actually meant awesome.
Or the other, I think another one that's really funny is the one where they say like, and it's actually relevant to Star Wars. Is basically this guy is going to be executed in a third world country, and he's like, "Well, tell the world my story. You really want everybody to know that you stole some chickens and dressed them up as characters from Star Wars?" My friend, if I were you, I would bury that so deep. It's like, I dress up as, I'm humiliated enough. I can't find my last words. I dress up a chicken as an Ewok.
What is the Red Dragon on about here?
Wait a minute, what? Where did he get all these chicken-sized outfits from?
I don't know. Apparently, he just. Why is dressing up chickens? Stealing chickens and dressing them up as Star Wars characters executable by death. It is a very strange and weirdly specific law. Yeah,
it's because we last time we checked, it's kind of weird. The laws get a bit iffy eastwards.
Yeah,
they do.
But yeah, I think like that kind of. Anything else to say about like plot armor? Because,
I'd say the best kind of plot armor is the kind that makes sense.
Yeah, plot an example of plot armor is actually in Wheel of Time. They basically built into this thing that there are these three characters where chance bends around them. So like arrows will miss. People who are usually like not that are pretty staunch in their beliefs may like change them based on the circumstances, stuff like that. But it's only like based on the probability. If something's impossible, it doesn't change. Or like odd things like a bunch of fish landing, like somebody tripping and all their fish fall point first in the ground in a perfect circle. Like that's an example of like what a Tiviran does around people, and just they do that by just being who they are, and then like impossible deaths, impossible rescues, but it all balances out. It's or even like what is it? Or like women leaving their husbands leaving their wives, higher quantities of marriages to compensate, no stillbirths, that sort of thing. But yeah. Alrighty. Well,
so what's the White Dragon on about with this question?
Your walking top, I think like he just means my laptop, the computer that I'm using right now, since I don't have my antenna yet. I will have it within a few days, and I'll be able to do at least a couple of gaming streams. See how that works. But I think like that concludes our shotgun writer's craft seminar. I probably need to re-edit it and kind of make a consistent topic, like just do writer's craft : something.
Yeah.
But alrighty. Well, I think that we will call it good there, unless anybody else have any other thoughts that they want to want to talk about with any of the subjects we've talked about already?
Done. I was trying to say this for quite a while, but I just say it now. Even while dead, Tolkien still makes more money than J.K. Rowling.
I'm not sure about that. Since in the history of the world, Harry Potter's only second to the Bible.
And the other thing, Amazon.
Yeah. So actually we're going to be doing a Amazon marketing thing where we'll basically like learn how to game the system of Amazon marketing by watching the videos about how authors have managed to make money off of Amazon.
Ooh.
Since one of the things about it is like once you get to a certain number of books, all you need to do is find some outreach, and then you can make $1,000 a month.
That's not what I was referring to, though. I was just referring to Amazon Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazon's like, synonymous with everything at this point, so.
Yeah.
They're an awful company.
Yeah, they're going to defile Tolkien.
But they're just awful in general.
That too. They're not very good. They're not very good bosses by all accounts. Though they pay well. So anyway, I think we will call that good for today. That was a very economic and quick. Mostly just simple topics. I'll cut them up into small bits and put them out, and I'll try to edit the tangents into a highlight reel, which I think will be rather amusing. But I'll cut this up into parts by section, by topic. So anyway, we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye, guys.